Hey guys, welcome into the final commitment impact video, as always brought to you by Go Lopes Radio. GCU has done it. They have filled out their 15-man roster, and if you recall, post-house settlement, there will be 15 roster spots for men's basketball, and we were wondering, for the last few weeks, they've been at 14 guys. Who is going to take that 15th spot? Well, we have our answer, and it is Evan Boisdur out of France. Apologies if we mispronounced that at all. But a pesky 6'1" guard will be joining the Lopes this upcoming season. So, who is Evan Boisdur? Again, apologies on the pronunciation. We'll be doing Evan from here on out. But much like F.A. Demo, if you remember when we talked about the Turkish big guy, it's just going to be a little different with these international guys. They're tougher to rank, tougher to place. For American players, it's the ESPN 100, other recruiting rankings, AAU, what high school did they go to, those sorts of things. It's so easy to kind of translate. We're so used to that in our mind, and it's just different with these international guys. So they're a little tougher to grade or get a perspective on them. But again, the experience is vast for Evan, 19 years old, and we're going to start with the club perspective. So this last year, he played in the under 21 development league that kind of reports up to the French main league. So I guess if you would say he played most of the season in the kind of G League for the NBA, AAA for baseball, kind of whatever your metaphor you like there fits best, but essentially in that league underneath the high league. And then towards the end of the season got called up and played a little bit at the highest level in France, which again, that's not nothing, right? So again, like many European players, he's been involved in this kind of professional club sort of scene for many, many years. So as a 19-year-old, he's got a few years of experience on the club side, which is really, really exciting. Even better though, in my opinion, in Evan's case, to me, is how much time he spent kind of within that French national team ecosystem. If you watched the NBA draft a few days ago, you saw just how many French players were in the draft. And again, that comes after the year before. And the year before, all sorts of French prospects coming over, not just to college basketball, but taking to the highest level in the NBA, which I think says, if you've been involved in that ecosystem, that's certainly saying something, and he's been there. So France, we know, is kind of their thing now over the last 7 to 8 years, is they produce really, really lengthy, rangy sort of wing guards that are really, really good defenders. It's almost an expectation if you want to be a part of their national team system. And I'll be honest, guys, Evan totally lives up to that. He totally, if you think of, the longer guys like Risache or Wemby, obviously, who's longer, even a guy like Batum, who's a little older now, but still grinds his tail off, can guard multiple positions, long arms, and is kind of involved and does all the little things. That's just kind of what French basketball is and has been. And so Evan, it absolutely kind of fits that mold. Again, a little different as a 6'1" guard, but totally still has all those characteristics. So first he played in the 3-on-3 U18 World Cup in 2023. We know 3-on-3 basketball has grown quite a bit over, the last 7-8 years or so. And he played in the World Cup in 2023. Listen, I'm going to get into those highlights in a little bit, but if you haven't watched them yet, just type them in, and holy smokes, the announcer is absolutely electric. You're going to want to watch that and have the volume up high because it is a really, really good watch. He also will be representing the French U20 national team this summer. Really an incredible honor, and kind of speaks to his talent. We know right now we have the U19s going on right now. That's the really big story. Obviously got a few of the big Americans playing over there, AJ Danabasta and Koa Pete out of Arizona right now. And so those U19s are getting a look into all those prospects. Obviously with him being 19, can't participate, but he will play in the U20s later this summer. I do expect him to not report to GCU until after that, so he will be coming in super late. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well, but just kind of some general housekeeping there on him. So vast experience within that kind of French national team ecosystem, and we know French basketball is really, really on the rise, especially kind of last 4 or 5 years or so. What are my thoughts on him on the court? So we'll start with the weaknesses and then obviously end with the strengths. We like to go about it that way. We're gonna knock the weaknesses out quickly because there's not a lot to the eye. The first thing, and listen, this is just kind of how it works, right? The jumper's just not there. The splits are not there yet. In the French B League, he was 41.3, 31.3, 75 and a half. So we'll just call it 41, 31, 75. That's in the French B League. You want to see those splits get up a little bit more, but then when he actually went up to the A League, his splits dropped to 40, 21.4, 68.4. So again, as he played against, again, if you can think of that top French league, I mean, these are pros. He was getting time, which is really, really exciting, I think, but those splits really, really struggled. Not a great three-point shooter, and overall from the field. To be in the low 40s, you don't want to be there. You want to be kind of on the other side of 45, even as a guard, if you can, try to get there. So the jumper, in my opinion, you know, I watched a ton of it. The jumper looks pretty good. So listen, I don't think this is like an infinite problem or he'll never have a jump shot or it'll just never happen. I think it's there. I just think maybe take some time. And I don't know. Again, I watched the video and the jumper looks really, really good. Obviously in the highlights, it's all mix. So of course it does, but I don't see it as something that looks like really, really broken and he'll never be able to develop that. But the jumper certainly not quite there yet, and the shooting splits just in general not there. The second is, again, when you think of that kind of archetype of a player who's more of a smaller guard, slasher, really good defender, not a great shooter, when you go to play 3-on-3, and I was watching the 3-on-3 highlights versus the 5-on-5 highlights, it's just a lot different. When he's playing 3-on-3, there's so much more space and he's so much more effective, right? There's only 6 people on one half of a court instead of 10. There's a ton of space. And he was able to navigate kind of the space so much better. And you notice the difference when he's in 3-on-3, he's able to get to the basket. He just felt a lot more comfortable with a little bit more space. That's obviously normal and also means he's going to probably want to get out in transition. He's a pretty good transition player. Once it got to that 5-on-5, it got a little clunkier. You could kind of just feel it. He struggled a little bit more. And so we'll just kind of see what that looks like moving forward. But again, I still think, you know, these are all things can be improved. He's only 19. Again, he's getting a ton of really awesome experience at the club level and at the national level. And so I think, again, we'll talk about his kind of projections and where I see him. A little bit more of maybe a long-term play here, but yeah, we'll just have to see with him. So let's switch it up and let's talk positive, because there's a lot of things I like. I know that sounded kind of negative, those 2 points, but again, we talked about that classic kind of French style, right? He's an absolute dog, lengthy, a real pest. And I don't know if you guys watched the series on the Olympics that was on Netflix. Really, really good, kind of behind the scenes. You should definitely watch. And you see that French locker room when they were playing the United States and when they were actually playing in the semis, and then also when they were playing in the United States. The pride, I mean, you could feel it, and they just play with such a tenacity, and everyone is so lengthy. It's really, really impressive. And again, he fits right into that mold. Obviously only 6'1", so it's a little bit different there, but a guy who could totally guard you one-on-one. And I could see him from a ceiling standpoint, the defense, like really being one of the better on-ball defenders on the West Coast. And I'm serious when I say that. That's no hyperbole. There was literally one possession, and actually multiple possessions on his highlights, where he just literally goes up and just grabs the ball from the defender, kind of like a peak Kawhi Leonard sort of situation. He just goes up and just grabs the ball and rips it away and goes. And the guy on offense doesn't even know what happened. So he's a really, really good defender, really pesky. And I think when I think of that player, I think there's going to be so much self-awareness with him that I actually think he might even be able to play right away, because it's like, look, he's coming in. He doesn't need to put up 10 to 15 shots. He's saying, I'm coming in and I play defense. That's what I do. That's my role. Try to get to the basket a time or two a game, get other guys going, maybe get some stuff in transition. But he's a guy who defensively on ball could, I think, immediately impact and help out with this team right away. The other parts of his game we'll see, but I think I want to call that out of, wow, this guy really can defend. And that gets me really, really, really excited. So similar to FA, we talked about this with him as well. It's just playing that pro game against big bodies. It adds up over time. There's a comfortability that comes with it when you drive to the basket. You're not thrown off when, you know, a stronger guy kind of tries to block your shot or gets in your way. You can get through screens easier, that, you know, they're not as shocking when, you know, a big guy screens you. And I think that's a massive advantage coming over. He's got that pro experience already. played against guys who are fully developed, full versions of themselves already. And so I think that's a really, really good thing for him as he comes over and joins the Lopes. Last thing is, guys, scrappy guards, they're back. They are totally back. TJ McConnell, obviously the sensation in the finals. He was doing all sorts of wild stuff. And I'm going to count Lou Dort in this conversation. I know he feels a little bit bigger. It's because he's so strong and big, but I think he's only about 6'4". You look at a guy like Jalen Suggs. These are all guys, they're smaller, scrappier guards. You wouldn't call them, you think of kind of the smaller guards who've always been able to initiate offense. You think of maybe peak lefty Isaiah Thomas, Allen Iverson, those sort of small guards, maybe a Steve Francis who would score. These guys are kind of the exact opposite, but because of their self-awareness and their willingness to kind of play that role, they are super helpful in today's game. We know in the NBA side, there's been a little bit more physicality, hand checking allowed in the last 2 years or so. That's helped out, but I think scrappy guards are back. And when you look at a guy like Evan, I think he fits that mold, and you can kind of say, yeah, that guy can play. Like, we've seen this at the highest level of basketball. That sort of player can play. And so I think I could see him really carving out a role short term, but long term, especially, without a doubt, this is a guy who could really impact a game, and he doesn't have to have the ball in his hand and shoot a ton to impact the game. I think that's really, really exciting. So my comp for him, and it's a little bit of a lazy one, guys, so I apologize in advance. Gonna go with his fellow countryman, Frankie Smokes, Frank Ntilikina, high twitch, kind of defensive guard, plays super hard, really skilled at kind of getting downhill, being in transition, struggled a little bit with the jumper throughout his pro career, but we know that at any point he can guard almost anyone, 6'7" and under. He's gonna give them a ton of problems and make life really, really hard for him. So I have that kind of as his natural comp, and yeah, I think I see a lot of, I know it feels a little bit lazy just going with his fellow countrymen, but I think there's a lot of comparisons there. How do I see him fitting in? Well, listen, I think he's an interesting fit for this year, as I mentioned, and I think keeping him long-term is where you get really, really excited about Evan. This season is going to be tough to break the rotation. There's not a doubt about it. I think Brian Moore's got that starting point guard job locked up. Man, it's about to be July. We are getting close to the season, but you totally can't pencil stuff in. But I do feel pretty comfortable saying I think Brian Moore is going to be the starting point guard for this team. Interested to see how Makai improves and gets better. I think there were some things we saw we really liked last year. He regressed shooting. I think struggled handling the ball a little bit and kind of getting pushed around. So we'll see how he improves. And I think that's the guy he'd be fighting for minutes for this season. Now, again, how much will he want to play his role? He's not a guy who has to come in and shoot a ton to affect the game, so I think that helps him out. And if he's willing to play his role, I think he could be a part of this rotation right away. Otherwise, I think you're looking at a guy who is going to be the starter for this team in the long term, and I think could grow into a bigger offensive role, improve the jumper, improve the splits. And so I think that's where you get really excited, right? It's okay, short term, this guy might be able to offer something to this team right away. That's great. If they're able to retain him, we have to say that now in this new era of college sports. This is a guy who I see could be, an all Mountain West, third team, second team sort of guy as he improves, adds some sort of offensive game. But I think he's got so many tools, and he is willing to play defense and give a ton of effort, as you see in the highlights. And I think that's kind of, if you could start there, I think offensively you can always work on that, develop that. And again, he's only 19, so he's kind of just getting started, coming over to join the Lopes as a freshman. So we'll see. But regardless, the Lopes have finished building their roster, and they get a massive commitment out of France in Evan Boisdur. And really excited to see him in person and kind of how he pops and just kind of how he fits in with the team. Obviously, as we assume, he's going to be joining the team a little bit later. Which would be a little bit of a bummer, but again, he's out with the U20 team for France. He played in the under 20s, and so be able to watch him there. It'll be really great. So we'll see how that goes, and a lot of pieces to fall into place here over the next few months. So again, please stay locked in on the message board here, and all things Go Lopes Radio. We'll make sure we keep you guys informed. So that's all for now, guys. Cheers.